But yeah, sometimes that's why. And it's just like he's just been having me to think about things differently this morning and all that kind of stuff. But like, I wrote some things of like, yeah, how do I just live and be this and live and focusing on you, Father? Like the life that you have given me, instead of not being sin conscious, not being, oh, right and wrong conscious of myself and then other people, but living, as you said, unbound. And I'm walking in that, being unbound and not being bound by what people say and by what they think or by what they tell me I should be doing or shouldn't be doing, how I should live or how I shouldn't live, but according to what the Father has said to me, according to the Father calls me, according to what He thinks of me and all of that, and living unbound in Him. But also, I was like, how do I live unbound in you as myself, but not impose myself or my freedom on somebody else, as Paul said in the letters of Paul, like, don't, like, your freedom shouldn't, just be a cloak, well, not righteousness, but like, not that part, but your freedom shouldn't be a cause to cause somebody else to stumble. So I was like, how do I do that, Father? How do I live in the freedom you have given me and not allow my freedom to be a hindrance on others? And I was like, maybe that is more so of no longer sharing things, that even when I'm just excited and it's on my heart to share, or I was flowing, maybe it's not sharing that. But again, I don't want to feel, it's kind of like what we were talking about, be stifled. I don't want to be stifled in just living by faith, right? Just being natural and just exist. You're not just existing, but going through life alive and well and happy and good and just full of joy and just being myself. I don't want that to be a hindrance on someone else, but also like I can't carry the weight around of being bound or binding other people up. And so I was just like, yeah, help me to, I'm saying that now, Father, like, help me to, yes, I'm unbound right now. I'm free. I'm not bound up in any way. And help me to not have my freedom be an imposition on others. And so, and help my freedom not cause others to be bound up. And if there's people that have an ought against me, who have an offense against me, Father, I pray that you free them up of their bondage, of their offenses against me, of their hurts from me, of their anger against me, of their injustice, the injustices that they feel and the wrongs that I feel like they feel I've done in their lives, Father. And vice versa. Help me to be unyoked to the bondage, unyoked to anyone else's bondage, unyoked to the past bondage, unyoked to any old bondage, unyoked to the bondage of limiting who God is. And this is what God is, and this is what God looks like, and this is what faith is, and this is what faith looks like. So yeah, that's what I was talking about, was just like, that's why it's like I really believe of the word of the Constitution of like, we really should have a limited government. Like, people should be, you're free to live how you want, but we shouldn't make our choices an imposition on the next. And I did that. And so this election season and working in politics and working with civics and all of that, and just this political sphere, this layer, has really, with these other organizations, has really helped me to understand that what it looks like outwardly, the manifestation of imposing your life, your choices, your perspective, your desires onto lives of other people. And they're like, I didn't ask for this. You want to be rich and a trillionaire, but that doesn't mean that I asked for the poor to be suppressed or anything like that. In the process, I didn't ask that, your choices cause damage or destruction or corruption or injustice to others in the midst of you striving for what you want. Not you, you know that, but like, that for an example, if it's a trillionaire, I didn't ask that just because you want to become a trillionaire, or just because the government is okay with the country being in debt. It didn't mean that like me personally, I didn't ask to be for that day. I didn't ask for that to be imposed upon my life. I didn't ask for the things and the choices that happen in the community be imposed upon me the way that policing happens or not happens, the way that the community looks, or if there are a certain zoning and coding guidelines. Like, I didn't ask for those things to be imposed or enforced upon me. And so it's just like knowing that, like, these things do happen, and how do then I continue to live in my freedom and be unbound when others make choices, or I make choices that can be an imposition, and that can be a bondage to myself or somebody else. And being able to process that and understand that and face that of like, my freedom, I don't want my freedom to make it somebody else's bondage. But and if I'm knowing, like, I'm not knowingly and intentionally going to do that. I'm not knowingly and intentionally going to put someone in bondage, all the same for my own freedom. But vice versa, I don't want somebody to knowingly put me in bondage for the sake of their freedom, for the sake of their choices, for the sake of their desires. I don't want it for the sake of my own desires to disrupt or create dysfunction or create lack in someone else's life, or create like, you know, like the absence of life. And I mean life in the sense of the spirit, and I mean life in the sense of what you get by the Spirit of God, that freedom, that breath, that light, that love, that joy, like just the freedom to be unbound, right? It's like, I'm unbound, and I don't want the fact that I'm unbound to be the thing that causes. And if I say something like this, for example, I don't want my word, like, I'll say this because this is the real and this is the truth for me, but I don't intend for my words, which make the words that the Father places in me, it makes me free, to then cause somebody else to be bound up. And this is why I believe, like, we have to discern, we have to eat the meat and spit out the bones. You're going to hear and going to see things all the time, but it doesn't mean I always saying, and I was learning from her, like, I don't have to take it on. I can understand that, okay, that's how you feel, and I apologize that my words made you feel bound up, but you're free. You're free. You don't even need me to release you, but you're released from your bondage, and I release you from your bondage, and you're released from your bondage, and release yourself from your bondage. Just vice versa, bound up by what they say and what they think of you and how they feel about you and what they don't like about you and what they, any of those things. You're not bound up by what society says. You're not bound up by what the government says. You're not bound up by anything, because the Father has made you free. And you've been free. You're not bound up by sickness or disease. You're not even bound up by not being healed. You're not bound up by any mental health issues. I'm not bound up in any way, and that's why I would always reject it. And it's like, I don't receive that because I'm not bound up, and I'm not bound up in negativity. If I'm speaking truth, if I am expressing myself, if I'm feeling an emotion, if I am just living life and being honest about life, or honest about how I feel, or real in a moment, or true in a moment, or just in a moment, or whatever it is, I'm not bound up to then say, oh no, this is wrong or that. And I don't have to be bound up by somebody's idea of something being toxic, because I'm not bound up in the world. I am connected and one and a bondservant to the Father, the creator of all life. And so I tether myself to his word. I don't tether myself to other pastors, and even other, the things that I find, like I listen to the message, and yes, there's so much of the message in the videos, the podcast that I sent you. I don't agree with a lot of what they said, because the word doesn't say that. I agree with the word. I agree with the Father. I agree with that more than I agree with even my own self or anyone else or anything. And so I'm going to continue to live that, in that freedom of that. I'm tethered to Yah. I am a bondservant to him. I'm not to anything outside of that. And that doesn't mean that I don't care about people, that I'm selfish. I don't agree with that, and I don't accept that, because I know that's a lie. And I won't bind myself up to those lies any longer. I won't bind myself up to those doubts and to that confusion and to that hurt any longer, or carry that of other people. And I get that, like, yeah, I don't, and that goes for anyone, any person, any relative, anybody, or any kin who are really like, doing the things of the word that I respect, because it helps me to walk out in this life in the way that the Father has prescribed that I am free in. I'm free in living in a certain way that the Father, that is written in the word. I find freedom in that, complete and total freedom in that. Others don't, but that's okay. I'm not saying that they have to, but I have that freedom and that account to the Father, and that account in the Father. And I'm walking in that, and I'm holding on to that, and I'll be steadfast in that. That is the steadfast love. And it's from love. And I'm never going to get rid of that and deny that and give it up for anything. I'm holding on it. I'm holding on to the Father. And I love him. And I thank you, Father. I thank you so much for giving me, like I said, your love. Making me in love with you totally, wholly, and completely, righteously, justly declared. And that reminder of yes, like, I'm not declared righteous just because of my actions. Yes, at times in a moment when he's judging between two people, it's like, judge, Father, you judge. And he'll judge that. But even still, that righteousness of the Messiah, yes, I'm not bound up. I'm free. I'm free. And so I don't accept what somebody is saying is negative, because it never was, because God didn't make no mistake with me. He didn't point out what he pointed out. They don't have to agree. I'm not bound up to you agreeing with me. I'm not bound up to your validation of whether or not you agree and approve of it. You know what I mean? Like, I'm not bound to that. I'm not bound to man. I'm not bound to him, and I'm not bound to them. And so it's like, I'm definitely not bound to their opinions, even their feelings and their thoughts. At times, my own, right? Because it doesn't always align with the word. The feelings and the thoughts do not overshadow what the word says. Nothing is stronger and more valid than the word. And I get what the word, yes, and that's why I'm saying, even in this about 1 Corinthians and loving one another, yes, I am loving people, even though they don't feel that love at times. Like the parent who's guarding over the child so that they do not, they're training them, and so that they don't grow up to just do whatever, and the child thanks them later on for that. You may not see the value of something in the moment, but that doesn't mean it didn't have the value, and that the value wasn't always there just because you didn't catch it and didn't get it, didn't understand it, didn't appreciate it. Now, I respect what people are saying, and I do, even if it doesn't seem like it in my actions. I can say it with my words, that I do respect what they're feeling. I'm not invalidating their feelings. I'm not taking away from their feelings, but I'm adding to it upon myself that I accept what they're saying. I accept what they're saying as though how they feel and what they need. And I can also accept that when I cannot meet that need, but also accept when I cannot wear the bondage myself. Like, yes, I love you and I care for you and I want to help you and I want you to be healed and whole and complete and redeemed and renewed and restored. But I cannot carry the bondage. I can't carry your bondage, and I can't carry no past bondage. I can't even carry bondage of now, and I get that for myself. I get that for them. We're not yoked to a yoke of slavery of bondage, but we are slaves to the master. So I'm not yielded to the yoke of slavery, of bondage. What is bondage for me is not bondage for the next person. They might not, I might feel free in not drinking, and they might feel free to drink, but I'm not bound to that. I'm not slave to that in any way. I'm not slave to it anyway, either side of the coin. And so thank you, Father, for helping me to understand and realize and just accept this and embrace this in this moment and have this moment and have this ability to be with you and process you, like we talked about yesterday, the yoke of slavery into bondage, and what is bondage for one person is not bondage for the next. And I walk in the freedom that I feel and that I receive, even in honoring your word, Father, not legalistically, but even to the point of, it frees me. It doesn't make me feel bound, but hey, that makes somebody else feel bound. But that's why I said I'm not asking for you to live how I'm living and doing what I'm doing. I'm asking for opposition to not be in the way. Unnecessary opposition from any person around me not to be in the way. God so help us, Yah so help us. It's through His help that we don't be a stumbling block to one another. And that's what I mean by like my freedom. I don't want it to be, cause to be a stumbling block for others, but understanding that will happen at times. And when it happens, Father, that you would free them up and you would free me up from that bondage in Yahuah Mashiach. I mean, shalom. So thank you. Peace and blessings to you. Have a wonderful day. We'll talk soon.